Welcome, everyone, to Redacted on this Wednesday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And this is the show where we hold powerful people to account, covering the stories you might not see in the mainstream media. Our goal on this show is to seek the truth wherever the truth may take us. And we've got a jam-packed show for you on this Wednesday. We're going to talk about an unbelievable story out of Ukraine where, you know, all of those weapons and monies that we're sending to that region. A new report from this story, I can't even, well, we'll go through it, but it's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy town about the amount of trucks, about the amount of U.S. aid that has been stolen right from the people who need it most. And you won't believe who's doing the stealing of it. We'll tell you about that.
Plus, the Justice Department has let us know exactly what led to the raid on former President Trump's house in their request against a special investigation. It's a lot. This is a 36-page, I want to say it's a bit of a barn burner. We're going to go through it and pull out what we're learning that's new from this.
And also, here's the headline, IRS equals WTF, because what the hell is the Biden administration thinking with the people they've now put in charge of this massive expansion of the IRS, the 87,000 additional agents that are going to be armed and coming for the middle class and poor people in America, not the wealthy. So we'll tell you about some of the unbelievable moves the Biden administration just announced today.
Plus, we are also going to continue to cover the energy crisis as now today, the last day of August, right? It's time for the weather to start cooling down. Are you ready to keep warm?
Yeah, so we'll look at the EU and some oil news this afternoon, some big oil news. Buckle up, everyone, because Redacted starts right now. Thank you. Charisma in our chat says best news show ever. Welcome.
Thank you for saying that. And a few welcome back Natalie's. Thank you for giving me the night off last night. We're in a crunch time here in our house, counting down to the school year starting tomorrow.
Yeah,
just a number crazy. Of hours now.
I had my hands knee deep in some dough earlier because I was making some surprise bagels for the kids in the morning.
This guy, he's going over and above for the first day of school. He's making bagels from scratch.
That's right.
A little much.
So I was a little bit late for because I was literally getting stuff ready and prepped for the morning.
Because they have to set overnight. As you may know, we've all
dough in my fingers here.
We've all only been waiting over a year for that video of you doing that. So
I got to put the the recipe, and I know it's a lot of, you decide whether or not you want to do it overnight, or do you want to just let them sit out of the refrigerator, or you want to put them in the refrigerator. There's a whole art and science to it.
You know, we live in Europe, and bagels are nowhere near as good as where we came from in New Jersey. And so Clayton decided he must do it himself. And his bagels are just as good as any bagel house along the Eastern Seaboard. I am going to admit.
Thank you
but
so
it's
much.
A lot of work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. And so is this show. We put a lot of work into this show tonight for you because there's a lot of moving pieces that we want to cover, both on the IRS, on Donald Trump, on what's happening in Ukraine, plus what's happening in the European Union and oil prices. There's a lot to get to. So we put a lot of hard work into this show. So please, if you would subscribe, that would mean the world to us. We are here live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time. That's when we do our live show. So hopefully you'll join us at that time. If you're watching the replay, some people always wonder, and I have to do this little public service announcement. Some people wonder, they're like, what is with that 30-minute countdown? Like if you watch the replay later, like hours later, well, that's because we do a live show at 4 p.m. So we start the countdown at 3:30. YouTube sends out all of their alerts. Takes them a while, takes their sweet ass time to get text messages and alerts out to all of you. So that's why we have the 30-minute countdown. So you can always scrub through it, fast forward.
Now, hey, I want to remind you, we have a newsletter. It's at redacted.inc. It's free. It has a lot of fun news, a lot of news we cover here. It's sort of like a study guide. You don't have to have studied before you get to the show, but a lot of this content, it tracks both ways. We had a writer that had been writing for us part-time, just a couple days a week, helping me out with stories. And today was her last day. I really appreciate her contribution, but from now on, the voice that you will, in case you're reading the newsletter, sometimes we write in the first person. And so from now on, you can sort of take it to the bank that the first person writer will be me.
Will be this woman.
Yeah. And so if I say things, you can feel free to write me back about it, or I love your comments. I'm happy to do it. It's absolutely our pet, our baby, our non-human baby in this house.
That's right.
Pet project.
So yes, please go and subscribe to the newsletter. Go ahead, Philip.
I was just going to say, and if by chance one of the articles looks like it was written by like maniacal AI, that means I contributed one for some reason and they put it in there. So any writing,
if you're ready to do that, let me know.
And we are at 992,000 subscribers. So there's a good chance that tomorrow's live show will be the 1 million subscriber live show.
Wow. So who will become our millionth subscriber? I mean, I have to say this is crazy, and I am so thrilled and touched. All of our subscribers, all of the support that we get here. I love the community that we have here. All of the people that join us every day live for the show and who watch our program later because they're in different time zones and they watch they watch our show at a later time. I love all of you guys. Thank you guys for seeking the truth and abandoning mainstream media in favor of independent journalism. That just means the world to us.
Yeah, I was sort of thinking about 10 years ago, Natalie, who really wanted a job on CNN and continued to get ghosted by the networks. If you had told me then, you don't need that, you will have your own voice, your own, you won't have editors, you won't have producers telling you what to do, you can do it yourself, I would never have believed it. And a really high rated CNN show does 200,000 or 300,000, right? So, I mean, look at the power of independent media and how news consumers have said, I don't need someone like Jeff Zucker telling me what I need to see. I will find it myself. Thank you. So power to you as well for choosing news with a voice that makes sense to you.
Yes. Thank you so much for all of that. All right. Without further ado, let's dive into our top story. So let's focus on Ukraine right now. And we don't want to say that we told you so. I mean, we don't want to do that. I don't necessarily like to do that. Actually, that's bullshit. I like to do that. Because what it often does when we tell you we told you so, that means that the mainstream media has been lying to you. So we told you so. A new report out this morning shows that what we long suspected, that Ukrainian government officials, not just like random guys, but keep this up on the screen. These are Ukrainian officials accused of stealing train loads of U.S. aid. Okay, the allegation comes amid mass raids by the SBU, the Security Forces of Ukraine. And get this, an anti-corruption agency in the Zaporizhzhia region. First of all, yes, American taxpayers are footing the bill for billions of dollars in monies going to Ukraine. And what we've long suspected, that they've been stealing U.S. aid, stealing U.S. weapons, stealing U.S. monies. Here's some video of the SBU. These are the security forces, by the way, that did this raid. According to the reports this morning, the Ukrainian Security Service and the Anti-Corruption Agency have been busting down doors and discovering that Ukrainian officials have been stealing American aid. And of course, this should come as no surprise to anyone watching our show, all of you who subscribe to our channel, that we've reported how the Ukrainian government, of course, is the most corrupt government in Europe and one of the most corrupt governments in the world. So would it be a surprise at all that this government would be stealing U.S. aid monies?
No, it wouldn't.
No.
Well, I think we also have to call attention to the credibility of the SBU as well. I mean, it's not like a,
well, I'm going to get to that piece of this. So, this is the interesting piece of this, right? So the Security Service of Ukraine, the SBU, is doing these raids and finding this corruption. Okay. One of the things I was stunned about in reading this story is that Ukraine even has an anti-corruption agency. Like, what the hell is that about? They have an anti-corruption agency?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Another big piece of the story is that they are not fringe government officials who are stealing these monies from the United States and from citizens who deserve it or need it. No, These are Zelensky government officials. They are part of the Zelensky government. This is no small theft, by the way. According to the report, the Ukrainian officials stole not just a small amount, but listen to this. They stole all of the aid. Like, they didn't even leave a box. They didn't even leave a scrap for their civilians. They stole all of it. ALL. And it was sent to the region near Zaporizhia. This aid was meant for civilians in that region. But by the way, this has happened all over the place. This is just one example in Zaporizhia.
And this is something that, again, the European Union would not allow Ukraine in until they address their corruption issues, right? So we already knew there was corruption. A lot of it is to do with Ukraine acting as a middleman between Russian gas supply and actual sale to its population, just sort of padding their own pockets as the sale of energy goes back and forth. This has been happening since Ukraine became a state.
Right. And remember Ursula von der Leyen, the EU president, saying, well, we really feel confident that Ukraine, in order to fast track their EU membership, they've really come a long way. I mean, they've really addressed the problems. We feel confident that they're well on the track to becoming an EU member.
Based on what? We're not quite sure.
David, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, what is included in this aid? Are we talking like pallets of money like in Afghanistan and Iraq? Are we talking clothes, food? Like, what are we talking? Because surely they're not sending citizens weapons.
So let's go through it. So here's some of the details of it. What they stole, they are reselling through local aid. They are selling through local retail establishments. The total volume that was stolen was 22 massive shipping containers. Okay, 22 massive shipping containers, like the ones that come into ports. They put cars inside of them. 22 of those they stole. An entire train. Yes, an entire train with 389 freight cars they stole. This isn't like some small little job, like little, two angry teenagers got together and decided to do this. This was a coordinated effort. You don't steal a whole train. 389 freight cars of material. They stole basically 389 Thomas the Tank engines filled with clothing. That's basically what they stole. Clothing, food, all kinds of, and then weapons and additional monies as well. They also didn't stop there. They stole 220 trucks filled with United States aid. Think about that. Just in this one example, 389 freight cars filled with stuff to help the people.
You know what really pisses me off about this? Is we're dealing with shortages here. We're dealing with a food shortage, and you're telling me they're sending 22 containers of ship containers. They're sending trains. They're sending all of this food over to Ukraine when there are cities here that need it probably far worse than they do.
Well, a lot of it is coordinated too by private groups. We've seen so much sort of civilian uprising and outreach to donate whatever you can, especially when the war began, there was a big push here in Europe to, what can you give? Baby seats, baby cars, right? Baby car seats.
Cars that babies can drive. Do you have any small vehicles?
It's a luxury war.
Cars that babies can drive.
Diapers, antibiotics, all of that stuff. So some of that was privately organized too from well-intentioned people.
But a lot of it comes from through the USAID, through Red Cross. So we know that a lot of the supplies coming from government-funded American Red Cross and others stolen. So U.S. and organized by those organizations and funded by the federal government of the United States. All of it stolen. All of it. Not just a fraction, all of it. So we're led to believe the SBU, which we talked about earlier, the Security Service of Ukraine, are the good guys now? Like, these are the good guys? These are the same guys. We showed you video of them breaking down doors throughout Ukraine, trying to track down dissenting voices, literally breaking into people's houses like you see here and knocking down doors, right? The Associated Press even did a ride along with these guys to show like, hey, we're seeking out people who might have pro-Putin social media posts in there or whatever. So as we've reported on this show, the U.S. State Department has on its very own website the details about the SBU's corruption and human rights abuses. This is the U.S. State Department. You can go, this is 2021, by the way. You can read this right on the U.S. State Department's website. So why is the United States government funneling millions of dollars to a corrupt human rights abusive security service inside of Ukraine anyway? So forgive me if I don't believe they've suddenly changed their stripes here. And now they're looking out for the bad, like they're looking out for the little guy. We're going to find corrupt government officials and we're going to root them out as part of our investigation. I don't buy it. This is the same SBU that has killed journalists. They've made people inside Ukraine simply disappear, but now they're looking out for the civilians. Again, I don't buy it at all. So something doesn't smell right here. The SBU, suddenly the Boy Scouts. You'll recall, maybe you don't even know about this stunning report a few years ago, an undercover investigation by Radio Free Europe discovered that these guys in the SBU drive some really fancy cars. Some top-of-the-line cars that no one else around them can afford. Lavish lifestyles. How do they afford all of this on a low-paying government salary? They asked. I mean, these are the cars. They had hidden cameras following the SBU around, right? Here they pull into parking lots, and here you are, the Ukrainian security service in Kiev, right? But the drivers are coy, they say, in this Radio Free Europe. Watch as this reporter runs up and tries to get answers from these SBU agents. How much does an SBU officer earn these days? How can one afford such an expensive car, she asks. No answers. No answers.
Well, that has been a problem with Ukrainian politicians from the beginning. In fact, Leonid Kravchuk, the first president of Ukraine, he drove a Mercedes, and people used to calculate that on his government salary, he would have to work nonstop 136 years to pay for that Mercedes. And people have always wondered, how can he afford that? Or other, for instance, foreign trade ministers would show off snaps of skiing holidays that he couldn't afford on these, so Ukrainian politicians sort of have always publicly taken one salary and lived an incommensurate life.
Yeah, and Zelensky
it's
too,
like that.
Right?
Well, I don't know what
was
his
that, Wise
salary
Guys
is,
or whatever? With Joe Piscopo, and I think it was Danny DeVito, where they're buying all that stuff, and they're like, "Thank you, Mr. Acavano."
Yeah.
Remember that?
Well, it's like
the
in
United States
Goodfellas.
is giving them that money.
It's like in Goodfellas. Like it goes right in the truck, and these guys come right in and take it right off, right? Mm-hmm. Then they enrich themselves.
Well, every government takes the opportunity to enrich itself, and so for Ukraine, it's just been an opportunity in between energy companies and energy consumers, right? That's just been an easy, low-hanging fruit. Well, but now this is just literally like truckloads of stuff that they're like, sure, I'll take that because that's our way.
Yeah. And so this, of course, comes as we just announced. So let's actually, before we get to that, let's look at the Zelensky piece of this, right? So Zelensky, a lot of us have had this question, like, why is President Zelensky so rich? The Panama Papers revealed massive wealth of the Ukrainian regime. And when they showed offshore accounts, offshore real estate, all of these things, how has he made, $596 million, salary of $780,000? Something doesn't track here. It doesn't really make sense to me. I'm not exactly sure why.
Maybe some of the, Vogue cover modeling is done for pay.
I guess.
I mean, Vogue does pay cover models quite a lot. So
yeah.
That's a possibility.
Yeah. Okay. So again, this of course comes as we all announced just a massive new tranche of weapons and aid package to Ukraine. So again, here's the Bloomberg piece today. This highlights this piece. I guess we have. Sorry. Do we have this screenshot? I think we do. Sorry, we're hearing some background noise, guys. I don't know if somebody's like open on the. There we go. Now it's fine. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was your system audio. I think you forgot to shut your system audio off.
No, I did that before I sat down, but I don't know.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. If it's fixed now, we're good.
We're good.
We're good now. Okay, so here's the Bloomberg piece. Torrent of cash for Ukraine arms puts Pentagon watchdog on alert. So the Inspector General is going to look for fraud, waste, and replenishment as we send a torrent of new arms to Ukraine. replenishing billions of dollars in weapons sent to Ukraine. Its inspector general said he's on high alert for signs of fraud and abuse at the Pentagon. Oh, really?
But how can that be when other members of the Pentagon are willingly admitting that they can't track weapons, that they really just have no way? They drop them off at Poland. It's like a school drop off. Bye, guys. Hope you have a good day. Like we've known this for weeks now.
Yeah. The Inspector General's oversights will focus on $26.6 billion in supplemental spending for Ukraine, approved by Congress since last year, which has supported a drawdown of weapons inventories. And then it goes beyond that. So if we think about the CNN study, which found out that, what happens to those weapons that go to Ukraine? We don't know. We don't know where they go. We don't know, remember when we featured that story from CNN, what happens to those weapons? We don't know. They can't track them. They're sent across the border, and according to CNN, a blind spot is there, due in large parts, they say, to the lack of U.S. boots on the ground in the country and the easy portability of many of the smaller systems pouring across the border. It's a conscious risk the Biden administration is willing to take. In the short term, the U.S. sees the transfer of hundreds of millions of dollars worth of equipment to be vital to Ukraine's ability to hold off Moscow's invasion. But we just don't know where they go. It goes into a black hole. We have fidelity for a short time, but when it enters the fog of war, we have almost zero.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not surprising then that there might be some corruption on the receiving end, especially given that story sort of blew me away with the one little piece that said it goes into even civilian cars, right? So there's no official recipient. And when you look at the piece that we showed you just the other day of soldiers in Ukraine that are dying because they can't receive this aid, they say they die on the fields, they can't get to any medics, no medics can get to them. It's 2 kilometers away from anywhere that they could go for help under heavy fire. Like, they really are not getting what they need, no matter how generous the West pretends to be.
Yeah, unbelievable. But I'm glad the SBU is tracking all of this, and they're on top of it, and they're looking out for government corruption inside of the Zelensky regime. Let's see how far they get and how high up the totem pole that actually goes. We've got more news to get to here on the show. We do.
Sorry, if I could. I just want to real quick add my little 2 cents into this, but I just wish there was a way that before we sent all this aid and before this happened, I wish there was a way that we knew, or at least had an inkling, that there was corruption going on in Ukraine.
Right. It would have been good to know that.
If only we had
some way we could have known.
State Department's website that was literally pointing out the corruption and the human rights abuses. If only we had some sort of Panama Papers that exposed government corruption.
Or the bureaucrat that was not processing Ukraine's application to the European Union for certain red flags that it had in its inbox, right?
Or the previous president
taking payments.
Yeah, exactly. Or the previous president, Poroshenko, before Zelensky, who was a billionaire.
Yes.
How do you become a billionaire? I mean, I know how Nancy Pelosi does it. Enriches herself with by stock trades and stuff like that while she's in office, and enriches herself through holding secret meetings with members of the tech community and then buys stock and tells her husband to do so. I get that piece of it. But when you literally have NATO sending your country billions of dollars and all of these guys are driving around in really lavish cars, and it's unbelievable how they've enriched themselves off of the U.S. taxpayers while America is suffering. I mean, literally this afternoon, Mississippi admitting that, don't drink the water. Don't drink the water right now. We're telling you don't drink the water. And we have more news this afternoon about California and other states across the United States that are having massive problems right now. But good thing that these guys are enriching themselves in Ukraine.
Yeah. If you want to sort of...
So
go ahead.
I was gonna say, so it sounds to me like we did know? I would be interested in an accounting. Yeah. I would be interested in an accounting on this to see how much of that money, because when you bring up Nancy Pelosi, she's made herself like 100 and some odd million in her position of actually getting to regulate the people who she's trading. To get to $1 billion as a politician, you have to be stealing state level money.
Right.
And I'd just be interested to see how much of that is trickling back to some of the people that are pushing so hard to send that money over there.
Oh, yeah. It would be interesting to watch that flow, right? So it flows out, and I'm sure it's coming back in some way. It's how do you track that?
We've
right?
never seen the flow. Like, it's already been shown that that's what's happened in Afghanistan, and we've never seen that flow, and we never will.
Yeah.
No.
No, we would love to see it in the form, like Halliburton, and how do these companies, actually enrich themselves off of this, and how does it come back inside of government, all of those things.
If you want to sort of get a sense of the way Ukrainian politicians treat themselves, Google the Mezoror. How would you say that? The palace that Yanukovych built himself before he fled.
Mesoraria?
Yeah. Can you? I can't spell it enough to Google it, but it's like it was this big palace that he fled, kind of like Liberace style home that people can still tour, right? That again, no politician, and obviously politicians don't live quite this lavishly anymore, but this is a legacy that continues in some of these, corrupt countries. Do you have a picture of it?
Yeah, hold on a second. There.
It had like crazy stuff, like things, it was very pastiche, things that should not have been there. Like, I don't know, things that like in velvet pools and billiard rooms and an Orthodox chapel and 2 dining rooms, many neo-Gothic cinema decorated with reproduction suits of armor, conservatory containing palms and a stuffed lion, a rifle range, a swimming pool, a waterfall, a gym with a boxing ring, 3-lane bowling alley, a cocktail bar.
A person who lives in that palace eats Fabergé eggs for breakfast, I guarantee.
For sure.
Like nothing but the best.
Yeah. At least 5 white pianos. So, this is sort of, this is now like, you can tour it. It's a national monument to like how politicians live on money they're not supposed to have.
That's lovely. Well, thank you. Thanks to all the money we're sending to Ukraine, going right into the pockets of these people. We have got more news we're going to get to here on the show. We're going to talk about President Trump and these documents and the latest there. We're also going to look at the latest in the IRS story, an unbelievable angle to that story this afternoon that the Biden administration just announced. We're also going to look at the oil market and its meltdown because oil prices are about to go skyrocketing. We're going to tell you why. The mainstream media, though, is ignoring that part of the story because they want the midterm elections to go super well for President Biden. So the headlines are all about how consumer confidence is surging because gas prices have plummeted. And well, get ready for the real story. We'll give you that in just a few moments. But first, you want to tell us about Trump?
All right. Well, the Justice Department says former President Trump should not get a special investigator because he brought this all on himself. The government filed a motion to protest what the former president had requested, which is a special investigator. So, as you might recall, former President Trump sued the Justice Department and said, we cannot continue with this investigation with the things that you took from my house until I am appointed a special investigator. The government had until last night to respond to this, and they responded with just half an hour to spare. So they put a lot into this. The 36-page filing was filed, and basically they're saying that we don't think the president should get a special investigator. Here's why. And it reads, it's the most transparent document that we've seen so far, telling us exactly why they did this raid. As you know, the affidavit that was released last week, that was mostly redacted. It was kind of bullshit, right? We didn't really get very much from it. We get a lot from this document. It even includes a photo of all the documents they recovered, but they are, you guessed it, redacted. So let's take a look at this document, this photo. We're going to leave it up on the screen for a few minutes because sleuthy internet users have been all over this, right? People are trying to
zooming in on the dates and the words and trying to figure out what these documents say.
Look, I tried the same thing. I was like, can I see any of that? Can I see any dates on it? The dates that people are able to see so far are that these are classified documents dated in May of 2018 and in August of 2018. But all of the, I guess because they knew that nosy people like me would continue to zoom in. Also, more nefarious people than me would zoom in and try and read this stuff. So they put these redactions.
Although you're pretty nefarious.
What would I do
Dr.
with this
Nefarious.
information? I don't think that there's anything I could personally benefit from.
You would
but
tweet it?
I wouldn't even do that. I'm pretty, benign on Twitter. Anyway, people are kind of looking like, does Trump have that cabinetry in any place in his house? Does he have that carpet? The carpet does, I want to say, look pretty Trumpy. What do you think?
I don't have to see it again. Yeah, it does. That does look like Trumpy style carpeting.
Gold and, whatever. And I don't know what this tassel-y thing is on the left. You can tell I've spent a lot of time looking at this photo today. So it was taken, they say, in the Trump home during the August 8th raid after the president and his legal team signed a letter certifying that all classified materials had been returned. So this should not have been at his house, right? Because they already sent a letter saying, no, that's everything. So the Justice Department says that there were some documents that were so classified that the agents involved in the raid could not see them, and they had to call lawyers in that were on site. Regarding the passports, right, the government says that the plaintiff repeatedly claims that his passports were outside the scope of the warrant of the improperly seized, and that the government is returning them and has admitted such. They say this is incorrect, and they use this a lot. They say, consistent with the attachment B in the search warrant, the government seized the documents of in a desk drawer that contained classified documents and government records commingled with other documents. The other documents included the passport. So basically what they're saying is that because of the way things were like willy-nilly thrown in a drawer, it proves their point that classified documents were mixed in with unclassified documents and were just kind of sloppily archived and kept, which I'm going to say, as someone who loves labels and label makers, this really makes my cold heart shrivel, because if you're going to keep stuff like that, like you don't even have a safe, you can't use a label maker, you can, or a file folder or anything like this, that it just really... That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, there are reports that President Trump would travel on Air Force One with just like boxes of documents, and they were like kept in no particular order. There's just like a lot of handwritten notes. There's like newspapers. Anyone who's been to his office in New York, I mean, knows, like, you go in there and it's just like, it's filled with like piles of paper. Yeah. Just like stacks of like papers and magazines and stuff all over the place.
Okay. A couple people in the chat are saying, do you believe this? I haven't said whether or not we believe it. We're telling you what the Justice Department says. Okay, I do not want to present this filing as fact.
What's the question? What's their filing is whether, so the filing is what we're questioning the validity of?
No, I don't think, we're not questioning this. We're just going through it at this point, right?
Okay, so we can
we absolutely should question this, and you should not think that I am presenting you the government's argument as fact. No one should do that, right? There has not been a trial. This is one side's argument. President Trump made another argument. Now the government is saying these things, right? There's a few things here they can prove, and we'll get to it. For instance, the passport stuff, they're saying they returned those things. Trump has not refuted that. So don't get pissed off at me if you like President Trump, or if you like the Justice Department or any of those things. We're going through it, and then we can ask appropriate questions. Don't shoot the messenger.
And if you think about it, it would kind of be easy. Like if it was intermingled in regular documents, that could have been placed there. Somebody could have done that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
There's so many different scenarios, because you would think that if they knew there were documents like we talked about on the show a while ago, that if there was some kind of documents like that in there, that they would have hidden them much better. They would have been locked up under like a safe or something like that. So it's like you really had sealed documents or what's the top secret documents in there in regular just boxes in a desk.
Well, so this is why the government is making this case, right? They do provide a timeline about how this all came about. And it shows how much Trump and his legal team were informed of what the government was after. In fact, in a letter to the president in May, we have the letter here. The National Archives says that it has asked the president to give the FBI the authority to see what was collected in those first 15 boxes. So this is the first 15 boxes that was collected with the president's cooperation in January. And it says that in its initial review, NARA, is the National Archives, identified items marked as classified, right? And then it says what? And then it says, which prompted the department to ask the president to request that NARA provide the FBI with access to the boxes. So at this point, President Trump could have said no. I don't want you to give this to the FBI, but he didn't, right? So he knew as early as April or May that the National Archives wanted to refer all of the contents of this document over to the FBI, right? What it further says here, if we can put that back on the screen, it says on April 11th, 2022, the White House counsel's office, affirming a request from the Department of Justice supported by an FBI letterhead memorandum, formally transmitted a request that NARA provide the FBI access to the 15 boxes. So, okay, now the White House told us they didn't know anything about this raid, right? They didn't say they didn't know about the investigation, but they sort of implied, like, we're not in this. We're not involved in this one, right? But this says the Justice Department is saying, or the NARA, in fact, is saying, that the White House counsel's office said that the FBI told the National Archives that the FBI needs to see these documents.
Okay, so I have a question. Question.
Yes.
So
Go ahead, Clayton.
Thank you. So the Secret Service is always around the president. They secure the presidential house. They secure his vehicles. They have advanced teams wherever he's traveling, in Bedminster and Mar-a-Lago. So by proxy, then, isn't the Secret Service securing his residence? Like, it's under secret. So you can't just waltz into his office. You can't just.
What are you talking about?
Well, like the idea that these are not secured documents, like that they're just hanging out. They're in his residence, secured.
But no,
by
there
the
is a
Secret Service.
Presidential Records Act, and there is a protocol that you were supposed to follow about records. And these, he knew this, right? So it's not like, oh, this is a safe place because he's always got Secret Service.
Okay.
It's not. You can't make that argument.
But even with them putting a lock on the door, that they instructed him to put on the door to make this location secure.
Right. So that piece of the story is not referenced in this document. This like, okay, cool, if there's anything else here. In fact, let's just continue to go through this evidence that they provided. Go ahead, David, though, your question first.
Well, I was just going to say, isn't there some kind of protocol with the documents themselves? Like, it's not like they're going to take a top secret document. They're going to say, here you go, Mr. President. He's like, oh, I might get to this later. I'm just going to put it over here in my desk. And like, I'm sure that any document that they get, they probably have to sign it out and then sign it back in or something, because like, that makes no sense that they would just let him take it and then put it wherever he wanted. Like, you can just keep on to that. Like, if you throw it away, just make sure you grind it up or whatever.
I know.
Here's a paper shredder for you, sir.
I like to think it's sort of like it's like Mission Impossible, where it explodes after 15 minutes or whatever. It self-destructs.
But you would
after
think it'd
15.
be like some kind of library systems, like, okay, Mr. President, we're giving you these set of documents, sign here to take those, and then when they give them back, it's like, okay, we need those documents back. I haven't looked at them yet. Okay, well, then when he hands them back, they sign them back in, and like, okay, they make sure that none of these documents are out circulating anywhere.
Right. Yeah, he would think.
Well, the most secret documents, like the high level top secret, like the really dangerous stuff, you actually can only look at it in a certain room. So it's almost like a bank vault where you go into the place, the document is brought to you, you can review it, and then it's taken away from you. So it's like that's.
I guess
that's
the
like
ones that are printed on paper with a yellow border are just kind of like, those are secure and all that, but I guess they're not that important. Just
or this is your
right
copy.
across the top.
Right.
Here's your Xerox copy.
I mean, yeah, you would think that if they produce these at all, right? Because given what we're learning about the president's organization skills, it does not seem that he keeps these like, brown and yellow letterhead and like puts them himself on. So you would think that whoever produces these knows how many copies there are in circulation and who has them and where they've been, right? So we don't get any answers about that. Now, we do learn from this document that there is a criminal investigation around President Trump about obstruction of justice It seems like it's apart from this offense of hoarding documents, but that's not completely clear to me. Trump's team also knew this as early as the spring because they requested an extension for producing more documents. So after January, they got some documents. The Justice Department says, we don't think this is it. Give us some more. Trump pushed back and said, well, we need until June. And in a request against their request for more time, you see that the Justice Department says, access to the materials is not only necessary for purposes of our ongoing criminal investigation. So what's that now? This is a letter to Trump's team, right? Telling him we need those documents because we have an ongoing criminal investigation. But the executive branch must also conduct an assessment of the potential damage resulting from the apparent manner in which the materials were stored and transported and take any necessary remedial step.
Oh, so now Team Biden gets to weigh in on the criminal investigation.
Well, the executive branch wants to know what damage resulted. Now, later on, we do see that there are other investigations on, like, if someone saw this, what, right? What would we have to do? What would be unsafe? Did somebody say that, the exact location of Area 51 or something like that? Then
so
do we have
codes.
to move?
Like, who do we hit?
Yeah,
who do we have to take out?
Right,
yes.
Who do we have to take
nuclear
out?
Codes probably change daily, though. Like, they're going to keep the same codes. We've had the same code since 1979. Like Verizon tells me to change my password every 5 months.
Yeah,
I know. This is.
And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say it. I mean, it smells like an absolute. What we've been hearing, right? It's like an absolute witch hunt. That's what it smells like.
Okay, but then let's look further at the communication between the two of them.
Okay.
So you may recall that after the raid, the president said, hey, if the FBI wanted more documents than we gave them back in February, all they had to do with it was ask. Well, they did. The Justice Department produced this grand jury subpoena that was served to the president's counsel on May 11th, 2022. You see here that it says, by May 24th, we want everything that is still in the custody of Donald Trump and the office of Donald Trump, bearing any classification marks, including all of these government initialisms, right? They want all of them.
They want NATO documents. They want top secret documents. They want, what else they want?
Everything.
Everything, yeah.
Top secret, medium secret, little secret. They want it, right? They leave no stone unturned here. Unturned. In response to this, the president's counsel said, okay, come on by on June 3rd. We'll give you the rest of what we didn't give you back in January. And so they did that. They called them up on June 2nd. They came over on June 3rd, and they were handed by the president's counsel a red weld envelope. I had to Google this because, I love office supplies. I don't have one of those. I might need one. This is a red weld envelope. They gave them exactly one of those things, right? And they said, this is it. They signed a certified letter saying there's nothing else left that has any classification at all. The representative of the president, the legal representative that met and gave over this folder, said this came from the storage room. And there's no other documents in the president's home in any other locations. And he even took them down to the storage room. So they went down there. And he's like, see, this is it. And they said, well, there's other boxes here. Can we take a look? And they said, and according to the Justice Department, they were not allowed to look in other boxes that were still there. So the boxes were
closed. And has this guy verified that he said all this and did all this? Like
this is what the Justice Department claims. Okay, so
I know there's so many people in the chat. They're like, Natalie, how can you believe this shit? And it's like,
stop it. Do you want to know it or not? Like, you can say you don't believe it. That's fine, but you can't.
Like, I don't know, like the not believing part. Like, this happened last night at 11:30 last night.
Right.
They sent this document to the president's team. Right. This is what was now published. So now this gives us a clue into their thinking about what they're going to try to do to, like, on this continued witch hunt with this guy. We do know that this office.
Well, okay, but we're not saying it's a foregone conclusion either way. We're not saying they're right. We're not saying it's a witch hunt. We're not saying it's not. We're not saying anything. We're just going through what they are telling us. And if you're saying, like, I don't believe it, well, you need to know what it is that you don't believe. You can't not believe it before you've gone through it, right?
Right.
So that's ridiculous. We're going through it. So
And then at the end, you could not believe it.
I understand people don't want to believe this, or they want to. I mean, I have my own personal feelings about it too, but I do think that the Justice Department really opened up their binder and said, look what we've been trying to go through with this guy. It does feel to me that based on all of these documents that are signed by the President's Counsel, grand jury subpoenas and these kind of things, it does feel a little bit like pride before the fall. Like maybe the president just thought, they don't need to know they're here. These are mine. I don't want to give it to them. I'm not going to explain it to them. I'm the former president. I don't have to, right? And the Justice Department just doesn't like that. But again, that's just a little bit of what I think of it. I'm just giving you the information so that you can be informed and not say it's a witch hunt without actually knowing what the Justice Department is saying.
All right, so go through the rest of these documents, and then we can all weigh in on the veracity of this and whether or not we think it's a witch hunt or whether we think.
Okay, but again,
merit.
the fact that you keep saying that, right, is like is prejudicial. Like you're saying that you, without even having to go through this, because sure, I felt like a lot of it
let's look at it before you make a decision.
Didn't pass the sniff test, the smell test until now, and now I see this, and I'm like, okay, there's a lot here that's in black and white that you cannot. There's some things that you can't defend because the president said if they wanted more, they should have just asked me. Here, I just showed you a grand jury subpoena. They did want more, and they did ask. And he did keep things back. So whatever you think of that, why he did it is an important question too.
Right.
Right. But we're breaking down part of this argument. That's it. So stop saying biased things. Let's just go through it. I'm not saying biased things, am I?
I don't know.
Am I?
It's not for me to say. I don't think you're saying biased things. You're going through it. Let's just go through it.
Okay.
And we can all make our own determination of it.
Okay.
But this, by the way, what you're covering right here does not exist in a vacuum, right? So
yes,
you need to be aware that like when we're going through this shit right now, this shit does not exist just in a little vacuum here. There's a broader political vacuum that's sucking, doing the blowing and sucking, let's be honest, right? So all of this, we know that the office that was there, the Washington, D.C. office that was there, the agents were involved in the Russiagate investigation, were in his Mar-a-Lago home. So the same people that have now been discredited for that, we know that on Friday they had literally walked a guy out and fired the FBI agent.
Yes.
So this does not just occur in a vacuum, but let's go through it. I just want to provide you. I think it's all about context too. So, all right, let's continue.
It is. But again, there is this notion that the Justice Department can do sort of work just based on one case. I think that that's what they're trying to prove to us. I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just saying, let's go through what they're telling us and what is real and what is not. So
one thing is clear. They wouldn't do this in other investigations, like show us their hand. Like they're going to keep this tight-lipped and quiet.
Yes.
And in this situation, they're like, okay, we're under a lot of pressure right now because people think that we're corrupt and we're having a lot of bad PR right now. President Biden last night in his speech is like, we got to stop attacking the FBI. He said, we got to stop, saying bad things about them. So they know they're under pressure. So that's why they're releasing and showing these additional documents.
Sure. Yeah. But I think that this document reads like they've just had it. They're under so much threat. Threats to the FBI are at an all-time high, and they're tired of it. They don't want to be accused of not crossing their T's and dotting their I's. And they're saying, look, we've done our homework. We tried to work with you. This is what we're looking at. Now, in the next screen, I want to show you after they went through this red weld envelope and they decided that, this was not all of the documents that they had been seizing. It wasn't in just one document, one envelope. They said they went then to go get the warrant for the raid on his house. They were specifically seeking the warrant, which was based on 3 statutes. This first one, willful retention of national defense information. The second one, concealment or removal of government records. And the third one, obstruction of federal investigation. So that is the third one is the one specifically related to was it obstruction of this investigation or something else? We're not sure. The document also mentions a separate ongoing investigation pertaining to potential violations of the Espionage Act. We're not exactly sure what that is about, but the DOJ says it is in the midst of an ongoing criminal investigation pertaining to potential violations of the Espionage Act. So,
2 different criminal investigations.
is that this, or is that something else that we didn't know about? So they also are looking into what, right? We don't know. Now, about the special master, the government makes the point that the things that are seized are not his, President Trump's. He cannot ask for a special master to exert that these things belong to him. And as to the things they do, the government says that's relevant because they are also investigating how he just sort of tossed around classified material with his own, say, cell phone bill or whatever, right?
Well, but like, okay, so if they took his passports, those are his personal things, his personal effects. If they took other, which we now know, privileged documents that
they say they didn't have to give those back because, again, this is their argument, the scope of the investigation is about how as much as what. How were documents treated and what were the documents were 2 relevant things. So if they were just like, again, like in a drawer with his cell phone bill, then like that's improper classification and archiving. Even you look at the next screen, it says it would also have been reasonable for the agents to remove intact, say, books and folders when a particular document within that file was identified as falling within the scope of the warrant, because they couldn't go through every book in his library and find things. So they just took full books and like, oh, there's something tucked in here we wanted, right? So we'll take the full book. And so, yes, sure, he could say that book was my personal property. They're making the argument it's not, because we were also looking for how you treated this stuff, right? So that, again...
Well, and I wonder if it...
Go ahead.
If it's like, as far as top secret documents go, are they all related to a certain thing? Because what if, like, would it be okay for a president to take top secret documents if it did have something to do with something that, like the election or whatever he was looking into, and it was top secret documents coming out about that, and he knows that there's no other way he would have that information for any kind of case that he might have going. So it's like, is there a point where it might be okay to shed light on a corrupt government to keep top secret documents?
Yes, but he could have actually unclassified these documents. It was just a matter of like making the application, like, I'm going to keep these. They're unclassified and they're mine now. He did not do that. And when he was asked for the first round of documents, it says he could have exerted then that he had unclassified these things, or exerted that he had the privilege to, and he didn't, right? So I think that it seems from this timeline that he felt like, I'll just give them these. They won't come back for more. Like it's all right, right? That, like someone in the chat said, Teflon Don, like, I don't really feel like I have to do that. That's not to say that he's not afraid of all of this or that he doesn't have his own rationale, but if he had things that he wanted to keep for his own reasons, he could have pretty easily. Now, we also learned that the Office of National Intelligence is conducting a review of these documents, which is what we spoke about earlier, to assess the potential risk to national security. This is on 2 different pages, so I'm sorry the screenshot looks like shit. But what it says is that this department is trying to assess the potential risk to national security from these documents basically hanging out in unsecured locations. Again, about this executive privilege issue, they say this was solved in the time of Nixon. The Supreme Court actually heard the Nixon case and held that the need for evidence in a criminal trial outweigh even a sitting president's assertion of executive privilege over presidential communication. So that answers your question, David, that if the government can say, we need this for a criminal investigation, the way they did with Nixon, then Nixon's need to assert his executive privilege was trumped by the government's need for the documents, for lack of a better word. Now, they say all of this to say absolutely no special master should be appointed, but they say if one is, the government makes these requests. One, they both want to submit a list of proposed candidates by September 7th, which is super fast. And they want this person to submit an affidavit concerning any potential basis for disqualification, which I think all of us are disqualified from this, because we all have spoken about, everyone has a bias in this case. We've talked about this at length before. Could the president have any unbiased legal proceedings at all? And third, all of these, like they must do this, but they want it to be done by September 30th if it happens at all. Now, incidentally, the lawyer who dealt with the document request all along since January was named Evan Corcoran. He was a former U.S. attorney. I redacted his email address and phone number, but it is readily available, surprisingly enough. He must be getting a lot of emails. Now, NBC is reporting that President Trump has a new lawyer for the case. This man, Chris Kise. He is the former Solicitor General of Florida and a close ally of Governor Ron DeSantis and Senator Rick Scott. He also was involved in the, the guy's name escapes my memory, the popular guy who was running for governor who then had admitted to some scandalous things in hotel rooms. He was involved in that case. I'm sorry, it escapes me. I meant to put it in my notes and I didn't.
Were you talking about Moore? Like, are you talking about from Alabama?
No, from Florida. You guys know who I'm talking about. He was a popular candidate, loved his family, and then turned out had some like drug addiction things. Oh, also, he was caught accepting Hamilton tickets by Andrew Gilliam.
Andrew Gilliam. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That so this Chris Kise was either he tipped off to that or he was somehow involved in the investigation of Andrew Gilliam. Chris Kise has also won 4 cases that he argued before the U.S. Supreme Court, which it seems may be where this case is heading.
Clearly,
I do have a question because, like, what you're talking about an unsecured location, and like Clayton brought up earlier, it's like, what do they consider a secured location? Because, like Clayton said, he has Secret Service and protection there at all times. So that place is about as secure as any, because a president can't go anywhere without that security detail. So what do they consider more secure and less secure?
Well, not a private residence. There are laws around presidential archive.
Become a private residence at the point that he lives there because he's the president, that it's no longer private because he's always under. But it's
not only about how secure it is. It's about having a complete record of history as well, right? So in any one given case, if there's some document that's missing, no historian can go back and see exactly how decisions are made or what was, so it's yes about security, but it's also about preservation. We could say like, oh, sure, this should suffice, but that's not how things should work if we want to live in a proper government. What are you going to say, Philip?
Well, just the fact that Secret Service, just because they're Secret Service, does not mean that they are authorized to view this top secret material that could or could not be there. Therefore, having that material there, even like they may be securing the president, but those documents are not secured from them. So even in that like small case, they're not, if they're not secured, they're not secured. You know what I mean?
So, there's certain things based on this document that even if you love President Trump, you cannot defend him saying, oh, well, they could have just asked. He would have given it to them. Or, oh, he has the right to unclassify documents. He didn't, right? He didn't exert his privilege to hold these documents. He said this was it, right? And clearly it wasn't. They found more stuff. What's in there? I don't know, right? And he was notified that there is a criminal investigation going on. So these are things that, these are facts now. You don't have to like them. But these are facts now.
People do not like this segment overwhelmingly. People are like, this is the worst segment ever. I get it, but this is the president of the United States who literally has a Department of Justice. This could literally alter the balance of power in 2024. And we could see riots on the streets as a result of this. So I think it's important to go through the nuance of this and figure out, like, what are they trying to do here? What are they trying to do? Like the same questions we had about what they did with Hillary Clinton's email servers. Like, what are they doing here? Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they prosecuting her? Why are they leaving this go? Are they going to try to keep him from running for president in 2024? You're going to see a civil war in the United States.
Look, we probably will get a trial out of this, you guys, and you have to be up on what are the details of the trial if you want any given outcome and still have a nation when this is all over, right? And so, like, you can't follow Amber Heard closer than you follow this, right? And be an informed citizen. This affects us all. Amber Heard does not.
Okay, so the context here, we're going to move on in a second because I want to talk about what the IRS is doing. But the context here is that, so yes, this is the update. The FBI field office, the FBI who went to his house at Mar-a-Lago, a large portion of them were directly involved in the now discredited Russiagate probe, right? So you have those same people who are still actively going after him.
Yeah.
Right? And by the way, Democrat created Steele dossier that led to tons of FISA warrants.
Yeah.
That led to raids. I mean, all sorts of problems, right? So you have the same people, the same FBI group going after him in Mar-a-Lago. That's context. That's important, right? You have the deep state that absolutely does not want him to run for re-election, doesn't want him to be president in 2024. They want somebody like a neoconservative, like a Liz Cheney. They want somebody who's going to keep us in endless wars, right? He, of course, came to blows with the intelligence state and the deep state during his time. I think that's largely why he lost, by the way.
Yeah.
I think that's why he was pushed out. I think that they don't want him. They don't want him cutting military spending. They don't want him removing us from foreign wars. And they don't like that he was ready to clean house at these intelligence communities. They don't like that. It's their livelihood. So that's my thought on the context of all of this.
Well, and I just want to say real quick, too, that people need to be patient because when you have documents like this come out, it's a part of the story. But there's their side, there's the Justice Department, there's Trump's side, and then there's going to be the truth. And we've seen this so many times. How many times have we seen this play out to where they have this evidence, they do all this stuff, and then nothing comes of it? So it's you just have to watch it play out and not get all bent out of shape about just covering the documents that is from one side. If the documents were out from the other side, we'd cover that too.
Yeah, yeah. And look, it's interesting to hear other people's opinions on what this is really about and what's the motivation. But we don't know. Nobody really knows, right? And so for us, we're just going to read what they do in their legal filings, figure out if there's any there's a lot here. There is a lot of participation from the Biden White House, more than we know, right? What do we learn from this? Also, investigations around espionage. Did we know that? I don't feel like I did. The president,
I never heard that mentioned once.
The president knew it. He was notified in writing. He has known this for a long time. And so, sure, he's got an angle. They've got an angle, right? We're reading what the Justice Department told us, what taxpayer-funded lawyers are telling us. And then, yes, sure, we can make our own argument, but we cannot blindly say things that just because you like Trump and be like, well, he would have cooperated. Well, the government didn't like the way he was cooperating, right? And so, okay, these are the facts. So get off my back. This is not a liberal take on anything. I'm just telling you what the Justice Department is saying.
This is a critical look at these documents. All right. We've got more news to get to. We're going to talk about what the IRS is doing under the Biden administration, going after average Americans. We're also going to look at the devastating news from the European Union and the United States around energy costs and what's going to happen with this energy crisis, because the EU is saying the United States is not going to be let off scot-free in this mess. So we'll get there in just a second. I want to tell you a story, though. Let me tell you a story. So this story starts in 2010. About a year and a half after President Obama was inaugurated, a conservative political group known then, and raise your hand if you recognize the name of this group, which was the Linchpins of Liberty. Does that name ring a bell? The Linchpins of Liberty out of Ohio. Now, I remembered at the time because I was covering it on the air while I worked at Fox, but they were filing for their tax-exempt status under the IRS Code 501c3. A lot of companies do. A lot of organizations do, right? This conservative group's mission, they say, is to, quote, challenge the imagination of the rising generation. That's their sort of mission statement. That's their mission. And they basically mentored high school and college students in conservative political philosophies. This was their goal. Taught them about, reading great books. Here's what you should read. Educate them about the constitutional order of law. This is things that they would teach them right through their charity. And in many ways, it actually sounds a lot like what we do on this show, doesn't it? At least we hope to. Challenge conventional wisdom, right? Maybe make you think about something you haven't thought about before. Give you some good books to go and read if you want a little bit more deeper understanding of the subject. And we vigorously defend those stories, right? We vigorously defend those values. That's what we try to do on this show. We are staunchly anti-war on this show. We are anti-violence on this show. Very similar to what the linchpins of liberty did at the time. So they applied, and now it's making me think we should apply for a tax-exempt status as a charity.
Yeah, sure.
Sidebar. But anyway, so the linchpins of liberty, they were filing for this tax-exempt status under the 501c3 code in order to raise money as a conservative charity organization. Well, unbeknownst to almost anyone in the United States at this time, the Obama administration had privately started weaponizing the Internal Revenue Service, also known as the IRS, to start investigating conservative groups. Now, Kevin Kukugi, which was the president of the Linchpins of Liberty at the time, he didn't even know about the dozens upon dozens of other conservative groups that had also filed for tax-exempt status as well and were awaiting IRS approval. So Kevin just thought he was by himself at the Linchpins of Liberty. He didn't realize how many other groups were doing the same thing. He would later find out that the approval process for a 501c3 usually takes about 2 to 3 months. At the time, in 2010, the IRS processed over 60,000 applications a year for tax-exempt status. And again, the usual processing time for these was about 2 to 3 months, which was odd for a guy like Kevin, who was wondering why in the hell after 27 months was his approval had not come through yet. 27 months. He went public about this, and he later learned that over 40 other conservative charities were also stuck in this same limbo. Because of these delays, then Kevin, along with the heads of all these other charities, lost tens of thousands of dollars in grant monies. These were other companies and other people saying, hey, we're going to give you this grant, but we can't just give it to a random person. It has to be to a certified IRS charity, right? Well, you're not yet approved? Well, then we're going to take this money and position it elsewhere. Sorry, Kevin. And sorry to your charity. And that's what happened because they couldn't accept money legally under this IRS code. But we now know that the IRS was blocking conservative groups from getting approval at the direction of administration officials, that the IRS had a list of conservative names and terms and terminologies that were flagged. So, for instance, you see the word patriot, right? If they saw the word patriot, that'd be put on a blacklist. Just among one word, many, many words like that, though. Any words that related to conservative values or companies would get put on this blacklist. Now, according to the lawsuits, the IRS officials across the country purportedly pulled applications from conservative organizations, delayed processing those applications for sometimes well over a year, and then they made harassing, probing, and unconstitutional requests for additional information. Like, we need more information. Like, you're filing for a mortgage. How many of you watching right now have ever filed for a mortgage and they keep coming back with like more and more documents? We need this, we need this, we need this, right? So they keep asking for documents, keep delaying the process. But other groups weren't, just these conservative groups that kept getting hit by this. And it amounted to a considerable loss of funds, donor support, and the damages went on and on and on as a result of this. In other words, the Obama administration weaponized the IRS to target conservative groups. This isn't a conspiracy theory. They did this, and they later apologized for it. The IRS apologizes for aggressive scrutiny of conservative groups. But of course, we know this because 3 years later, in 2013, after intense scrutiny and interviews and push by the press, they admitted to it and apologized for it. And the IRS said it would do better eventually. They fired top-level officials as a result of it. The head of the IRS, lost his job because of it. They cleaned house, they said. Back in 2011, once the IRS admitted in the front of the Bar Association, one of the members did in front of the Bar Association, that it had in fact been targeting conservative groups, a massive lawsuit unfolded. And the conservative groups joined forces to sue the IRS. That's how they knew about it. Well, they admitted it. We're going to sue now. We know it was a concerted effort. Here was the here was the defendant list, and take a look at that name in the middle there. This is important. These were the list of defendants that they sued. Among them, there, Lois Lerner. Another one on that list among the defendants in the Obama administration is another one, Nicole Flax. These are important. Just put a pin in those names and those for a second here, because these are all important. Nicole Flax, Lois Lerner. Both of these women who were actively involved in the IRS targeting of conservative groups. Sued for it. They were sued for it. Lois Lerner was in charge of the tax-exempt division. She was in charge of it. There she is. She was in charge of approving these. She was the one who would approve or deny these groups. And then during congressional investigations, Lois Lerner repeatedly pled the fifth and said that her hard drive had crashed and that she didn't have the evidence that the committees were seeking. So
that's too bad. Yeah,
then it turned out, we found out that she had also, it wasn't that just, her hard drive crashed. You know what she did? Here's what she did. So, I don't know, the emails aren't on my hard drive. It crashed. And so what I did in an effort to try to recover this missing material is that I also had it wiped and then recycled. I had the hard drive cleaned off and then recycled, so that all of those problem emails.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah. So I'll get rid of all those problem emails.
That's the best way to take care of data.
Right, is to recycle it, is to clean it off and then recycle it, right?
Yeah.
So
100%.
She recycled the computer, and then all of those emails disappeared permanently. And then we learned 6 other IRS officials during these investigations also admitted that their computers suddenly had problems and those emails disappeared too. Gone. It's almost like they planned all of this, right? Like it was all coordinated somehow, you would think. Almost like someone had guidance from the Obama White House. Here's how Megyn Kelly put it back then, years ago.
We learned that nearly 2 years of Ms. Lerner's emails vanished when her computer crashed. Then we found out that 6 other IRS employees' emails apparently went poof. Terrible, terrible computer glitches at the IRS. Now we are hearing that Lois Lerner's hard drive not only crashed, but that it was recycled or wiped clean. Why'd they do that? And today a bombshell report shows one of those 6 who also lost their emails magically also happened to be a frequent visitor to the White House. And she just so happened to be chief of staff to the former acting IRS commissioner, Stephen Miller, who resigned in the wake of the targeting scandal.
Yeah, that person going to the White House 35 times was Nicole Flax. Nicole Flax. Remember, I showed you that name earlier because she was one of the defendants actively involved in the targeting of these conservative groups. Well, the reason I'm telling you all of this is to give you some context over the people and the Biden administration has just put in charge of their massive expansion of the IRS. Yes, the billions that the IRS just received to hire 87,000 armed IRS agents will now have as their leader of this expansion, Nicole Flax. So the very same person who was helping to target conservative groups is now going to be the very same person who's overseeing this expansion of the IRS. What could go wrong?
So you're telling me it's not a good time to organize a conservative group?
No, it's not. It's not a good time to be a conservative. It's not a good time to organize. It's not a good time to seek tax-exempt status. Because now you're going to have the IRS scrutiny and the audits and, who knows what else.
Right. So,
and if you don't,
will groups like Black Lives Matter who, use their donations in a dodgy way, maybe also get a visit? Or
remind us of what Black Lives Matter did.
Okay. They used a series of LLCs and different ownership tactics to buy luxury goods for themselves, including really expensive real estate.
Yeah, they bought a house
In Los Angeles, and I think another one in Toronto, if memory serves.
So these people who were donating to Black Lives Matter thinking like, hey,
Thinking they were going to, like, on the memory of, like, you know, real victims of police brutality, and, you know, the Black Lives Matter folks were taking that money and using it to raise their own personal brands.
right, enrich themselves.
And enrich themselves, absolutely.
Yeah, well, so
it
will Nicole-
seems they did it through, you know, like a series of, I don't know, you know, shadow LLCs and things like that. If this is, I'm going off of memory here, but at the same time, they are not a conservative group. So will they get a pass? Whereas conservative groups who do something similar will get the book thrown at them.
I mean, of course, we know the answer to this, right? I mean, we are a news show. We're giving you the context here. It's like fool me once, you know, shame on you, right?
Sure.
Fool me twice, shame on me. And so here we go. This woman who's been there, by the way, she has a LinkedIn profile. I was on it, so like looking at her LinkedIn profile today. 15 years at the IRS. Like, she's a career deep stater at the IRS, right? Now she's actively in charge of the massive expansion of the IRS. You know, and if you think the Biden administration isn't going to use them to go after political enemies, I mean, come on. You know, if you think that the Biden administration is frankly just an extension of the Obama administration anyway, which I do. I mean, all of them are former Obama's administration officials, right? They're all there. They're all together again, running the show. Of course this is going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and again, what bothers me so much about it is that President Obama tried to pass it off, right? As this like, oh, this was, he called it, I think at the time he called it like some boneheads. He called it like some boneheads that
some rogue people.
Yeah, it was
right.
not corruption. Bill O'Reilly even asked him, you know, at the time, like in an interview, like, was this corruption? Was it? He said, no, it wasn't any. We're close to corruption. It was just some boneheads in an office in Ohio. Had nothing to do. Meanwhile, we learned that the woman who was literally involved in being sued and was overseeing the approval process was at the White House at least 35 times, meeting with the head of the IRS. Okay, coincidence?
Well, and the thing is too, you can try to put it on a party like that, but it's like if you look at things that come into light that a Republican would put in place, and then the coming Democratic president has a chance to overturn it, they just expand upon it. Mm-hmm. And then the Republican comes in, and then they just expand upon it even further. So it's like, it's just an establishment. The establishment is in control, and that's both parties have been co-opted by the establishment. And so we get the same thing regardless of who we have.
Yes, but we blame presidents for a culture, right? And so could Obama have stopped this? You know, I want to make the case that sure, yeah, he could have, right?
He could have cleaned house.
If he got word of this, he could say this is unacceptable under my administration, right? And so there's a culture of what is allowed and what is not. And so, you know, this is telling.
Yeah, it's really telling. So get ready for your IRS to be weaponized in more ways than one. We've got more news to get to here on the show. We are going to look at the oil meltdown and what we can expect from oil prices in a moment. But do you want to tell us about our friends over at Bank on Yourself first?
Sure. Well, you know, we've all been brainwashed into believing that the only way to grow your money for retirement is to risk it on the stock market or partner with the government, right, to invest in the stock market. That's not true. You absolutely can reach your financial goals and your dreams without taking any unnecessary risks. Ask yourself, do you really control your retirement money? If you've got a 401k or an IRA or a similar retirement plan, then the government controls it. You've decided to use a vehicle that they created, right? So they decide how much you can borrow and when you can pay it back. You'll owe taxes and penalties for taking money out too soon, right? Even though it's your money. Well, there is a better way. Bank on Yourself is a way to grow and protect your hard-earned money. It's a retirement plan that has never had a losing year in over 160 years. It is tax-free retirement income. You'll know what your tax rate is. It will be zero, basically, under current tax law, which protects you from the current tax tsunami, which is coming. There's no volatility. Your plan doesn't go backwards when the markets tumble. Both your principal and your growth are locked in, and you are in control, right? This is money that you put in a vehicle that you own that you decide how it's used. There's no like arm's distance, right? You can only invest in these things and not that. You can't benefit. Of course, you can benefit from it right now and also use it in your retirement tax-free. You also get peace of mind, perhaps the best reason of all. You'll know the minimum guaranteed value of your plan on the day you tap into it and at every point along the way. So you can get a free report with all the details of how adding Bank on Yourself to your financial plan can help take back control of your money. Just go to bankonyourself.com/redacted. That's bankonyourself.com/redacted.
All right. So let's talk about the broader economy right now. We are watching a worldwide energy crisis unfold right before us, guys. And I'm really getting nervous. I will say, I don't get nervous about a lot. You don't know me as a fairly anxious person, do you? Am I like an anxious person?
No.
But this is really making me upset, and I'm worried. I'm really worried about what's going to happen in just the next few weeks. I mean, we're already seeing the pieces of this coming together over the past couple of weeks. As it relates to the energy crisis. It's a moving target right now. A couple of headlines today, though, that caught our attention. We wanted to bring them to you here on the show. So think of this as sort of like an energy crisis roundup, because there's a lot here that happened this afternoon. First of all, let's talk about what we know now from the European Union, which is that the European Union has declared an energy crisis. And the U.S., she says, Ursula von der Leyen says, will not be immune to this, right?
Well, of course not. No.
Right. So what she says is, let me kind of go through what she says here. This is why we, the Commission, are now working on an emergency intervention, Ursula von der Leyen says, and a structural reform of the electricity market. We need a new market model for electricity that really functions and brings us back into balance. The skyrocketing energy prices are now exposing, for different reasons, the limitations of our current electricity market, the European Commission president said on Monday. She says, we developed this under completely different circumstances and for completely different purposes. It no longer is fit for our purposes. Oh, really?
But what is different this year than last year, right?
Well, she says
the infrastructure worked last year. People were able to get gas to heat their homes.
Well, here's how it worked, right? It worked when you could lie to people and tell them that with these additional subsidies and bullshit that we're propping up the renewables market with, that it's on parity, right? Hey, solar and wind, but because we're propping up with all kinds of subsidies, are just like oil and gas and nuclear. And therefore, because we're making this transition pretty soon, like we'll be able to surpass this. We'll be able to get rid of oil and gas and that's gone. But the problem is when you're propping up this with taxpayer dollars and you're funding it with subsidies, and then suddenly all of the oil and gas is removed from the picture because you weren't planning and you've turned off your nuclear power plants, crisis, catastrophe,
yes,
right? An artificially man-made catastrophe. So I think that's the piece that's missing here, because no, renewables, solar and wind, were never going to replace oil, gas, coal, right? It was never going to.
Yeah.
It was only going to supplement it, and it was going to aid us in this transition. Later, they keep calling the transition, but you shut off nuclear power, which is really ultimately the answer, is nuclear power.
Yes.
So now she says, under this system, all electricity producers, Ursula von der Leyen says, from fossil fuels to wind and solar, bid into the market and offer power according to their production costs. The bidding starts from the cheapest resources, the renewables, and then finishes with the most expensive ones, usually gas, she says. So we're just going to basically open up this market to everyone, and we're going to do our best here. But it's the U.S. is not going to be immune to this.
Okay. I mean, if clean energy really was cheaper and easier to produce, like why would they need subsidies?
Right.
Right?
Well, and because it's a lie.
Yeah.
It's a lie. If it was going to overtake oil and gas, it would have.
Yes.
It would have. Already.
And we're not talking about like the fact that clean energy is not worth doing. Of course it is. We all want a clean planet. This is a mutual goal, right?
Right.
But we also don't want poor people to freeze in the winter, right? And so the renewables that we have right now are things that politicians just take pictures in front of, right? Windmills and solar panels and electric cars. That's not the innovation that we need. We do need something else, but we don't have it yet.
I love this meme today. See if you. This one made me laugh actually. So here it is from. You can take it on my screen here, Philip. Which is, this is from Star Wars, but you can see the guy on the left there. That's Anakin, right? It says, "My electricity bill in Ireland is out of control, and I've got no idea why." LOL, good one. Just like a close up of. No, I really don't know why. I really don't understand. I can't figure it out. And it's because of this woman today in Ireland who tweeted out, it's going to go viral. We'll probably feature it in our newsletter tomorrow. She's a woman who owns like a pastry shop in Ireland, and she got an electric bill, and it was 10,000 euros for 2 months of running a small bake shop. And she has a Ukrainian flag emoji in her handle. And she said, "Oh my God, I don't know what? Why is this happening?" She can't figure it out why this is happening. So the internet exploded. People are saying, you really don't know why this is happening? You have no idea why this is happening? Just look at your Ukrainian flag emoji in your Twitter handle.
Yeah.
And she said, she said maybe she's a sweet lady. I don't know, but maybe she's so naive. And then she wrote another follow-up tweet that she says, "I'm going to have to do my homework and figure out why these energy prices are so high." And a bunch of people, I think somebody tweeted, Daniel Drumbill tweeted and said, "Good luck with your homework."
Yeah.
Good luck with your homework figuring this out, because it's very clear like what exactly is going on. All right. So the other headlines we wanted to get to: Russia halting all of gas to Germany this afternoon. So Russia has officially halted natural gas flows via their Nord Stream 1 pipeline. That's going to be devastating. Now, it's down for maintenance for a few days, but it's only going to regain 20% capacity when it goes back online. And there are concerns among Europeans that it would go beyond the September 3rd maintenance date.
Yes. So, and, European politicians are saying, hey, you're toying with us. You're playing this cat and mouse game. Well, we're playing. We are actively involved in the game. We started sanctioning, so we can't really say what rules that they can play on if we're going to sanction them like this.
Yeah. This is blowback.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to only roll out 20%. And like I've said again, once Nord Stream 2 is officially greenlit by Germany, the war is over, because, you have Germans right now, again, foraging through the forest to find firewood. And this, and you literally have these politics being played. And so you have protesters in Germany showing up to political events saying, we don't support this. We don't support the fact that you're doing this in Ukraine, that we have to freeze this winter. Like that's not what we signed up for in this.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, California asking residents this afternoon not to charge electric vehicles. So if you want to just see... I want you to just keep this headline
I thought
up.
we were all supposed to buy electric vehicles.
And yes, they
prices.
only this week said that they would ban all electric cars by the year 2030, I believe, maybe 2035. So clearly they're not ready for that. My dad drives an electric car, and my sister and I, we always tease them because
he's in California.
He is in California, and he has an electric car. And everywhere you go, the chargers are filled, right? Totally packed, because people don't want to pay the prices to charge in their homes. So all the public chargers are always taken, and you get fines if you go over your allotted charging time. And it takes a lot of organization. My dad, bless him, is not a super organized person. So we're like, you can never take dad's car because he can't figure out like his routine of when to charge it.
So, I'll put that headline back up again. California asks residents not to charge their electric vehicles days after announcing gas car ban. So they don't want you to drive your gas cars. We don't want you to charge your electric vehicles. Guys, didn't I tell you? I told you. And I said, I don't want to sound conspiratorial, but I'm telling you what's coming next. Climate lockdowns. I'm telling you. I'm going to do a deeper dive on it this week, or maybe over the weekend. But I'm telling you it's coming. And you're seeing the first signs of it. We don't want you to drive your gas cars because, look what's going on. That's what's happening outside. And we also don't want you to drive your electric cars and charge those, even though we told you to buy them because that would solve our climate crisis.
Which
See what's
also
coming.
doesn't make sense, because if we can't drive our gas cars, how can we stick it to Putin?
Right. How can we fill up? And with this Putin price hike, we get, that's how we stick it to him.
Yeah, that logic can't play that out.
So this, of course, is because of blackouts, right? So rolling blackouts in California. That's the point, right? That because we're going to see extreme temperatures in California. So what you're saying is we can't handle it.
No.
We can't handle it.
No. And not to mention that charging those cars takes a lot of electricity. We don't have enough solar panels to do it, right? So that comes from the grid, which takes a lot of water. It takes a lot of water to produce a unit of energy. And California doesn't have that either.
Yeah. Yeah. The worst drought we've seen in 500 years. I mean, you've seen the stories, the reports, how they keep discovering like bodies in Lake Mead because the water level keeps, they're like, oh yeah, this person was murdered 20 years ago. We couldn't find him. Oh, thanks to the drought. We're finding all these bodies buried in Lake Mead. Wouldn't that be a great like murder novel, a murder mystery? Like, boy, he thought he got away with it.
The Secrets of Lake Mead.
Like
he didn't,
foiled by climate change.
He didn't count on the drought that year that exposed the murder of his entire extended family or whatever. They all found him in Lake Mead thanks to the drought. They just found dinosaur tracks in Portugal. They found a new Stonehenge in Spain because it's been so dry, right? So they found they only thought there was one Stonehenge was in UK. No, we just discovered another one because it was so damn dry.
Under a lake. Yeah.
Under a lake. So, but to read mainstream media stories about this, you'd think that everything is going fine. And that's why President Biden's approval ratings are up higher. He hasn't done a speech or he hasn't done a meeting with reporters anytime soon. So here's the CNN headline this afternoon. Lower gas prices push consumer confidence to the highest level since May. So good news in the economy, according to CNN Business. Lower gas prices push consumer confidence to the highest level in May. So people are going back to the stores.
But that doesn't mean that they feel good. It means they feel less shitty.
Right.
It just means there's a surge in like the little bit that they save, they can actually go get a little bit of food.
Yeah. So that little bit of extra.
Was that historically going back? Do I understand like all the way back to May?
I know.
Were people even alive then?
Historic
Holy cow,
highs.
May?
All the way back
historic
to May.
highs since
highest level since May.
What?
So all of that to say that's total bullshit. So a couple of the stories I wanted to give you now have to do about oil prices. Now, this is what I talked about last weekend. This is the data that no one else is talking about. You're going to hear it on this show. You probably won't see it in the mainstream media anywhere, which is that oil prices are about to surge again. Now, Zero Hedge has been all over this. A number of experts that I follow have been doing great analysis on this. And when you kind of correlate the analysis across a number of different sources like this, you see a pattern. And this pattern is emerging. And then today we got this news from Zero Hedge. Here's the headline. OPEC Plus flips forecast for 2023 to deficit of 300,000 barrels per day. So keep that up there a second. What does this mean? This means what we've long predicted, that when President Biden flew to Saudi Arabia and asked them to increase production, we knew it wasn't going to happen. They shook his hand, they did the little Saudi Arabian fist bump, and they said, yeah, we'll look into it. We'll look into it. Oh, they looked into it. And now the opposite is going to happen. OPEC Plus announcing their forecast, they're going to be cutting 300,000 barrels per day in production. What does that mean?
Inflation.
Skyrocketing prices.
Yes.
Skyrocketing gas prices. And you don't believe me? Here are the diesel prices over the past few days, already going back up again. Look at the diesel prices. For the week of August 29th, nationwide price of diesel just jumped $5 per gallon, up from 4.9 per gallon for the previous week. All coming. Just diesel prices. So again, gas prices set to explode over the next few months thanks to OPEC cutting production. That's what it comes down to. OPEC cutting production. Again, it had nothing to do with Vladimir Putin. It had to do with the United States and Europe deciding that it was not going to get additional resources of gas and oil from Russia, while at the same time OPEC cutting production.
in order to support Ukraine, which we talked about how that support's going in segment 1. So it all comes full circle.
So get ready, guys. I know this like ebullience right now that the press is like, like licking President Biden's boots, saying, "See, things are turning around again. He's doing great." That's how the mainstream media is spinning this.
Well, we have a speech by President Biden tomorrow, scheduled for Thursday afternoon, September 1st, I believe. He is supposed to address the soul of the nation. So if you were feeling that you need some healing in your soul, we may get some.
I'm looking for that soul healing.
Yeah.
I just, lower my gas prices, please. And let me actually use the electric car that I bought because you told me to. Like that was 3 times as expensive.
Yeah, are those politicians going to retract that now? They're going to be like, I know we said to buy electric cars, but, now that we think about it, just walk. Just start walking, ride a bike.
Or can you put your feet down like Fred Flintstone? That would work too. So.
All right. Well, I want to thank all of you for subscribing to the channel and being a supporter of the show. Not the news isn't always going to be lovely and positive and what you might want to hear. We've got to get through it sometimes, though.
Sure. We got through it. Okay. Do we have any super chats?
We do. We have Rob Volp, Marco Claudu, and Husseini, and with super stickers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Natalie's shirt is awesome from Rainmaker. Sorry, Clayton, you look suave as always, but she's rocking that shirt.
Oh, thanks. It's a dress. And I was worried that it was a little like coal miner's daughter looking. But
well, even if it was, that's an awesome movie.
That's cottagecore is a big thing. So
is it? Yeah.
Knock it off, dude. You sound like an old bar at grilling.
I don't know. I don't usually wear puff sleeves. I'm a little selfish. So thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. It's actually from Benetton. So thanks.
PD, it's really refreshing to hear a fair and balanced discussion on the war in Ukraine. Just wondering what motivated you to go to, quote unquote, the dark side.
What is
Are you talking to me? Dark side. I think when people refer to the dark side, I think they're thinking, okay, the light side is the mainstream media narrative, right? Like you follow just what the mainstream media tells you. You follow like in this narrow, what Noam Chomsky refers to as these two ends of a field, and you get to have a narrow discussion between these two markers. It's like we try to break through that and say, no, wait a second. When someone says that like Bernie Sanders is a progressive, or that the squad, AOC is a progressive, like our job is to say that's not the case at all. Like where are the progressive moves that they've made to actually help people? Like, we should be calling those people out. CNN has them on the air and praises those people. So the dark side, I think, I think after 20 years of being in the mainstream media, you see how it operates and you're disgusted by it.
Yes, but we really try not to have a preconceived side. And so one of my accountants who subscribes to our newsletter, he says, I can't tell what side you guys are on. And I was like, good, because we're on the side of just questioning things. That's it, right? We're not here to speak to your bias.
In the super chat, they just mean like that's like where we are is considered the dark side by the establishment.
I get
because
that.
It's like trying to be silenced and all that. So
yeah. So welcome to the dark side then, I guess. And like when I was on Fox and I was a news anchor on Fox News, people would say to me like, I can never figure out your politics. It's like, well, that's good. I mean, because I call bullshit on Democrats and Republicans. I was critical of President Trump on a whole host of issues, just as I would bash President Obama on a whole host of issues. I wouldn't pull any punches. So I think both of these political parties are corrupt. And I don't vote for either of them. So that's my thought.
Well, I think it's like sad that it's more nuanced. That it's like because it's hard for people to understand when you have a political stance that can't be easily represented by a single flag or a bumper sticker, like where it actually has to take an in-depth conversation to figure it out, and people just tend to not like that because that's difficult.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Believe me, most of the stuff that we cover here, I don't like the way we're coming. I'm like, oh, this makes me uncomfortable, but that's why we're here. So.
Well, I
Yes,
was just going to say, like,
someone
it's funny how truth seeking has kind of become like conservative. Like if you do anything outside of the main narrative, you are considered right leaning now. And people will say, "Oh, you're a Trump supporter. You're this. You're that. You're right wing."
Yeah.
That's like,
yeah,
you're
like
not
Joe
at all.
Rogan. Joe Rogan is a progressive, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it was funny when people were like, Joe Rogan's a right wing nut job. It's like he's like, what? When did I? He's like, I've never voted for a Republican in my life. Like, why? How am I? Because I'm seeking the truth. I'm now a right winger. Okay, does it make any sense at all? Like, when did the right wing have now? Corner the market on truth. Like what? Anyway, it's ridiculous.
They do have Truth Social.
That's true.
Well, I have an applicable comment. It wasn't a super chat, but somebody threw this in the chat earlier, and I just had to grab it because it made me laugh. But I'm not going to say who it was, but somebody said white glasses guy is such a Democrat. When his party commits corruption, he just says it's okay because everyone does it. So I'm sorry to inform you, David, but you are a Democrat.
Apparently, you're a Democrat now.
Wow. Obviously, I'm not looking.
And you're not just a Democrat. You're such a Democrat.
Wow.
I saw that comment too.
I wouldn't have made that generalization, but okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Linda Uzi, keep on doing your hard work for us.
Thank you. We will. As long as you're
Jake
here and you
Coral.
subscribed and you're a part of our show, we'll keep doing it.
Mm-hmm. Xi Jinping is real. CPC is culturally repressive. CIA threatened to use Uyghurs to destabilize and collapse China. It values stability, so crack down instead of asking quietly like diplomats. CIA is using this as justification for war.
Yes. I don't doubt that in the least. Absolutely. And some of the stuff we've been talking about here on the show on that exact topic. So thank you for that super chat.
Sneaky Fox Jr., the rights of the people will only be protected so long as it does not conflict with the state.
Leah Vox says, hey, I love that Clayton is not a Democrat nor a Republican. No way. I mean, both of these parties are corrupt as corrupt could be. I would love to see a third-party candidate in the United States. We just don't have them. They will never. I mean, these two corrupt parties keep third-party candidates from ever running. Doesn't happen.
Well, and that's the thing. Like we had the Democrats introduce legislation to, the voter right to help people vote when they are the party that tried to get the Green Party removed in several states from the ballot.
Right. Yeah.
They did get the Green
horse and
Party
pony
removed
show.
from several states.
Yes,
Yeah.
they did.
It's not that they tried; they actually did get the Green Party
They
removed.
did
in several
exactly.
states.
They tried to do it other places, but yeah, and that's the party that says we care about voter rights.
Well, and the same thing with Republicans against libertarians. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the same play. It's the same gameplay.
Jay Thomas, please interview attorney Robert Barnes on these matters about Trump. He is very knowledgeable.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lars Job, don't forget there is a potential Fourth Amendment issue with the Mar-a-Lago warrant being over abroad.
Okay.
Someone says,
Michael Klein, there is a consequence to all the doublespeak. The truth is now what we believe it to be, not based on the facts presented.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see that happening more and more. Like we saw that with the pandemic, especially when they kind of took the narrative and like, well, no, this is now science.
Yeah.
I'm science. Everything else is, like this isn't how science works anymore.
Right. I'm science. And when I retire, science will go with me.
Yeah.
Dr. Fauci.
Candy Mitch, taking something for actual truth is different than taking something for one side's truth.
Yes.
True. But here's the
Seth
thing with
Reed.
like the FBI thing.
ahead.
It's like, here's their documents or here's the DOJ's documents. Like this is what they presented to the president. Like we should go through what those say, and then we can make our determination. Like, are they full of shit? Like this is what they say. We'll talk about them. Is it political? Is it bullshit? Like then we can take a broader tack on that.
Seth Reed, you guys rock, with a $100 super chat.
Wow.
Thank you so much,
Oh,
Seth.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Little Jazz Bird, Natalie is the best objective, unbiased journalist I've seen. Bravo, bravo, bravo. She isn't against Trump. She shares all sides as she should.
Thank you. That's what I was going for. That's what I was going for on that. I'm not against Trump. I'm not against anybody. I'm against war.
Tell it like it is. What burns my biscuits is the American taxpayer now funding the treachery of the American government, but we are also bankrolling the Ukrainian government chicanery. Way to go, Washington.
I love that's one. I love chicanery. Chicanery. Or chicanery.
Shenanigans.
Chicanery.
Monkey business.
Wow, we just got a whole bunch more. Not every Stephen Lopez Rios. Not every negative news of Trump is a witch hunt.
Yeah.
Catherine, missing President Trump yet? 45 will rise again. Franz Xavier Joseph Conrad, Tucker Carlson predicted California's debacle. Leo Titian, hello team. Are you tracking layoffs? They kind of intensify. GE 5%, Snapchat 1,200 people, no end in sight. Will it get worse in October?
Yeah,
Yes.
in the newsletter too, we have Bed Bath & Beyond also. Yeah, we have been tracking layoffs. And we did a segment here just a few days ago about how many companies are saying that they will lay off early in 2023. You know, this sort of boom of corporate business is not going to last very long.
Yeah, I just did a whole video on that specifically.
I want to say last Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, I did a whole video on the coming layoffs. Let me see if I can find what the name of it is. But yes, once I have the name of it. But
We'll look through your notes while we keep going.
yes. So it was. I just did a whole segment on the coming layoffs that are going to happen.
It was last week.
Yeah, I just can't find the name of it right now. But go ahead. Sorry about
Jake
that.
Coral with 2 super chats. Dude, Jing Yang is real. CIA plan to use Uyghurs as to destabilize China.
I
China
think we
values
already
stability
read
above
that
all else.
one.
Yeah,
That's,
Yeah, you
it's
read
a
that
different one.
Oh, they must have done it.
And it's
Different
also
one.
Uyghur.
And then
yeah,
that's what I said, didn't I?
You said Uyghurs.
Oh, Uyghur. Deep State DeSantis surrounded by the corporate media, making him a hero villain, and neocons like Rick Scott and Marco Rubio. We need to rise up and spread love. Rand Paul, Tulsi Gabbard, 2024. I might get behind that ticket if it was reversed. I think Tulsi should be in the front of that ticket. Natalie Chavez, when there are Republicans in the White House, when you criticize them, you're a Democrat according to Republicans. And when there are Democrats in the White House and you question and criticize them, you are a Republican.
Yeah.
And that is exactly how it is.
Yeah.
Daniel Shohu, I like the white glassed guy, and the girl is very pretty. Her husband married up.
that's true.
He's pretty too.
Yeah. And that's it.
Are you suggesting you both married sideways?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. But you know, men, they stay handsome for longer. So eventually it may go like this. We'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't hold it against us because we're beautiful.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. I remember someone said, you can't marry that guy. He's just going to get more handsome. And you're going to, you know, it's a nice thing to say.
And so far, they were accurate. That conspiracy theory came true.
Oh, the things people say to you. All right, guys, it's a school night for us. Our kids start in the morning. We got to go. We got to get in bed early.
Candy, thank you so much for your super chat. Be thankful you have politics in the USA and not Canada. Yeah.
Yeah.
And John just sent a super chat. The fact that the whole of Washington establishment wants to get rid of Trump makes me prefer him. I got to tell you, John, like, I'm not, you know, I have my feelings about the guy. I've interviewed him many, many times. I've known him for a number of years. I have my feelings about the guy. And I think, you know, if you know his history, you know, New York Democrat, basically, right? So that's not a mystery. But so it's about like what he would do to the deep state that I find most interesting. So regardless of like Democrat, Republican, is Trump a New York Democrat that kind of saw an opportunity to become a Republican, whatever, like that's the charge. I mean, people have said against him who've known him for years, right? Going to Hillary Clinton's weddings or his daughter's Chelsea Clinton's weddings, all of that stuff, right? We know this history. But will he actually? Because he said he would drain the swamp. Remember that? He didn't. Government expanded under Trump. But now, if he gets in, does he know something now where he would literally go in and fire everybody? I would love to see that. Like, I would love to see the size of government shrink, like just wipe out everyone, wipe out the whole deep state. It would be amazing to watch.
Yeah.
So,
okay, I'm going. It's a school night.
Does he have the balls to do that? We'll see.
Don't go any more tangents.
And
We're saying goodbye.
7 years ago.
Say goodbye.
My forefathers
Okay,
set
Philip,
forth.
turn off his microphone, please. We're done. We're really done now.
Well, I was just going to tell this really long story from my childhood before Clayton goes on with his.
You know what? I'm gonna tell you what my son's preschool teacher used to say. I want to hear that, but I don't want to hear that right now.
I'm going to tell the Norm Macdonald the greatest joke ever told about
Goodbye.
the
I'm
moth.
leaving.
Bye, everyone. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Peace out.